We have a lot of clients who say, we no longer need an expert in this space because we can hire a junior person on salary and give them Chat GPT, and they can go ask Chat GPT, how do I automate this process? Or how do I build this system? And it's hard to be a consultant or advisor and say, I see the writing on the wall ahead of you. It's
Yeah.
going to hurt.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. And now for your host, Matt Haney.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on another episode of the Scalability Code. Today, we're joined by an old friend of mine, not old, O-L-E, a friend of mine, Tara Kinney. Tara, thanks for joining us today on the Scalability Code.
Thanks for having me, Matt. It's so great to catch up.
Nice to see you again. It's been a minute. I can't wait to catch up on it, but we'll get to that. But first, I like to start off the same way. In life, we rush our way through introductions, and we're taught to get your elevator pitch out as quick as you can so people know about you, and then get into what you're talking about. But I always like to start our shows a little bit differently because this is our chance to go unpack your background of how you got to where you are today and learn more about your entrepreneurial journey. So think back as far as your brain will allow you to how you got your start as an entrepreneur. And I don't necessarily know like your first entrepreneurial job, but like, is there someone in your life or someone that comes to mind that helped you realize what entrepreneurship is? And is there a way that shaped you to get where you are? Or if no, maybe a first job that made you realize you wanted to be a crazy entrepreneur?
I don't even think I was old enough to make a conscious decision that I was an entrepreneur when I washed gravel in the dog water bowl and sold it door to door. And my parents found me down the street at age
Peddling
3,
gravel.
pedaling gravel. But at least
That's
I
hilarious.
knew even then that if you wash it, it can be sold for a nickel instead of a penny. I mean, the market for
That's
dirty rocks
hilarious.
was not that solid.
That's hilarious. Where was this? Where did you grow up?
Paonia, Colorado. Extra points if
Okay.
you know where it is.
Ooh, I'm gonna guess Northwest Colorado.
No, it is in the west, central west. It's Gunnison Valley.
Oh, I know where Gunnison
So,
Valley is. Yeah,
yeah. So good little snowmobile ride to Crested Butte.
I have fished in Hotchkiss, Colorado, which is near Peonia. I know where
It
it
is.
is.
Only
I
10
win the
miles
award.
away.
I win the award. I have gone through Peonia. I knew the name of it. Yeah, I'm a big fisherman, so I fished the Gunnison River, the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, which is near
Yes.
Hotchkiss, which is near Peonia.
Yeah. So my dad was a forest ranger, and that
Oh
was his
wow,
forest. Yeah. So that's how we
so
ended up
beautiful.
there. And
So
yeah.
beautiful. Oh, what a cool
So,
upbringing. A lot of
yes.
orchards and plains land out there that you wouldn't necessarily think is there. That's really cool.
Yeah. And,
And you were
from a
washing gravel. So your dad was a farmer, he worked for himself or he worked for a farm? Or forest
No, he
ranger, you
was a
said.
forester, so he worked for
Okay.
the government, for the U.S. Forest Service, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom who became a school teacher
Very
as I got
cool.
older. Neither one of them were entrepreneurial,
Hmm.
but they started an Amway business. They got brought into Amway when they were young, and they didn't have a lot of money, and so they couldn't hire a babysitter. So I spent most of my youth at Amway meetings learning
That's
how to
fantastic.
peddle products, and I
That's
would
so
balance
funny.
their books at the end of the year, the checkbook, and I also did inventory of their product shelves and would help my mom each week pack up the Amway boxes for their customers of what they
That's
had
so
ordered.
cool. Early multi-level marketing at its finest. Amway certainly changed a lot of lives. And was Cutco there right after? Or was Cutco was sort of in that? Do you remember Cutco knives? Is that
I
familiar at all?
do. I have
Okay.
some, but in the small town of Paonia, I don't have any idea when Cutco came on the market. It was not
Yeah.
in Paonia.
That's so funny. Yeah, that was another one of those cool MLM things that was cool way before all the other ones were,
Yeah.
which is really cool. So you got your first entrepreneurial taste washing gravel in the dog bowl. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
And then how did you progress into entrepreneurship? Like sort of what was your journey to becoming your own, business owner and so forth? Like how did you get there?
Yeah. Well, My youthful aspirations were not in business. Between the Queen of California or Tomb Raider, I was trying to figure out if I was going to go to school to be an archaeologist, and I realized that my natural skills were more in the area of business. So I ended up studying business and thought I'd go the corporate standard route like everybody else. But in the corporate environment, I found that the harder you work, the more work you get to do, and you're still
That's
on a
exactly
salary,
right.
just like everybody else. But the people who do poor work just sit there and collect their salary, go home at 5, while you stay and might work, multiple 27, 30-hour days, where a
Wow.
company perk is will roll the television of the World Series into your cubicle while you finish your work. So I was being recruited by someone who was a former boss of mine and said, "Hey, I'm going to start a recruiting company to build marketing and sales departments. I can't offer you a full-time job, but maybe I could do 30 hours a week. I can buy you a laptop and you're just going to have to sit on my couch and we'll do this thing." And I was so burnt out from all those 27, 30-hour days on trains all up and down the East Coast that I took the leap. And that's how I kind of decided that entrepreneurship was my thing. I liked doing all the different parts of business, very operational by nature, but also able to do the forward-facing parts of business. And since I left the corporate world in 2005 and did virtual work with a flip phone and a fax machine back in the day, the world's progressed and I've just rode along with it. So currently, Atomic Revenue is my third business. And we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year. But
That's amazing. 10 years is
yeah,
incredible. Well, you let the cat out of the bag. So you tell us about Atomic Revenue. Obviously, I know about it, but
yeah.
give us some backstory on the the way Atomic Revenue's business case came up, and you decided you wanted to do it, and sort of what the business does, and how you've grown it to being successful after 10 years.
So I learned early on that businesses didn't have a lot of options to fill gaps within their organization. And this is pre-gig economy,
Right.
pre-fractional world.
Right.
The options were you hire an employer, you hire an agency. And because I was a fractional CMO, even though no one called it that at the time, I was saddled with these unrealistic budget expectations, unrealistic performance expectations, and I couldn't get the labor mix to accomplish the goals.
Right.
So I was representing an infrastructure as a service cloud computing company and learning how to communicate to the world that you can share servers. I said, why can't we just share a graphic designer? Why can't me and 3 other companies share a graphic designer? And I spun into the next business. So I was a fractional CMO for 7 companies at once. And I had 32 contractors. We were the outsourced marketing department for those small businesses. But many of them struggled to hire a sales organization, or they couldn't turn the value produced in marketing into revenue. And I ended up leading their sales organizations in addition to the marketing team, which became unrealistic. We're all
Right.
human. You have
Right.
human capacity. So that's how I ended up with Atomic Revenue.
So you came up with that and spun the model out of that. And how did you give us some history on like sort of how that's progressed? Like the business started as an apple and probably turned into an orange, or maybe it turned into a different kind of an apple.
Yeah, it's probably a whole orchard at this point, we'll say.
Yes. Yes.
So it started off as fractional advisors, and we focused on growing businesses with lead generation, sales conversion, and customer loyalty. And over time, we started to onboard a lot of contractors to fill gaps at those
Right.
organizations and did a lot of the work that I did previously, where we would provide whole teams. So we'd make the strategic plan and then bring in the resources to help our clients build the infrastructure and hire team members to take it over from us. And we still do a lot of that work today, but the world has become much more complex with bigger tech stacks and more challenging data analysis requirements and AI and automation. So a lot of the things we used to do now require a lot more labor, or you have to find new ways to get the analysis done. So now we have several ways that we have deployed AI to reduce the labor within our own business so that we can control costs of services for clients. That helps with scalability. So now we can have our diagnostic tools that look at marketing, sales, account management across the board. And someone who is only a marketing leader can deploy the diagnostic tool without being a sales leader
Right.
or an account management expert, and bring that to their leadership team. And so that's where we're really going, is trying to find more ways to get this integrated expertise into the hand of people who are siloed experts within organizations and trying to solve leadership challenges that are truly across and connecting every department.
Right. Interesting. Well, you said the buzzword, but it's a relevant one. AI, AI, AI. It's actually two letters, the buzz letters that always come up in these conversations. And, you know, I think the advent of chat and other sort of LLMs has drastically changed how small businesses operate. Those who have embraced it, but I do continue to find it being the element of the unknown is hard for a lot of different people that don't have experience or a team. I mean, a lot of the clients that we work with tend to be service-based businesses, B2B or B2C, and they don't have a ton of experience with using AI. So I'd love to learn a little more about some of the tools or practices or programs that you guys are implementing both in your business and then also in other businesses to help them use AI in a simple or complex way.
I think the best way to help our clients use AI is to build it in as part of the infrastructure that's working alongside them and not something that they have to touch or do much with, to the maximum extent possible. A lot of our clients, like yours, are B2B service businesses. So you have engineers or R&D technical professionals who are in sales and leadership roles. They're not technologists, so it has to be easy to use. And we have to build in all of the checks and balances to avoid hallucinations and try to make sure that all the right data is in place so that the AI systems don't run away with business. And I think that's one of the biggest risks as companies are starting to adopt AI, is they
Yep.
don't have good data to feed the AI. So the AI is having random acts of hallucinations, and their team doesn't have any experience or knowledge to understand whether or not what's happening with AI is correct.
Yeah, it creates an immediate distrust between the data that whatever the output is. Yeah, interesting.
We have a lot of clients, or I should say prospects, some of them don't become clients, who say, we no longer need an expert in this space because we can hire a junior person on salary and give them Chat GPT, and they can go ask Chat GPT, how do I automate this process? Or how do I build this system? And it's hard to be a consultant or advisor and say, I see the writing on the wall ahead of you. It's
Yeah,
going to hurt.
yeah,
But right now, we do see a lot of people who, while some people don't trust AI and are hesitant to go into it, we see the inverse as well, where people totally trust it and they'll follow it right off a cliff.
yeah. No, there's a lot of analogies you could draw, and one of is, it's like just because you're, tall enough to drive the car doesn't mean you know how. right? Just because you can step in and sit there and touch the pedals and it doesn't mean you know how to drive it. You still have to have the infrastructure and the framework to operate the car, or in this case, the AI or whatnot. And I think everyone's ChatGPT, the term is sort of sometimes transposed into AI. It's like, well, that's a chat. That's not AI. It is AI, but it's not AI. And it's like, there's other elements to operating a business that, needing specialization around a tool or product or service is going to drastically, determine how successful the business is going to be when using that. You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it.
And even though the technology is available off the shelf and anyone can go put their credit card in and pay $30 a month to get this automated LinkedIn outreach tool or whatever it is that you're doing, we are seeing it cause excessive tech stack bloat.
Yeah.
And people are not really using all of the technology that they have, but they also haven't integrated these new AI tools that people are subscribing to with the rest of their organization. So we are seeing some challenges bubbling up, but where we see the most success with AI, so that was my downer, right? But where we are seeing a lot of success with AI where people find very specific applications and build really smart tools with human in the loop, experts in the loop, who can verify the information and support, support how the tool is set up or how it is used. And then it can really do what it's intended for businesses. Some of my favorite uses are the architectural tool that does
different than
space
archaeological.
planning.
Architectural
Right.
versus archaeological.
Very different. So,
architectural.
The architectural tool, it does space planning and gives you several different ways to build the building, and you can see how you can get the most units that comply with all the regulations on a footprint. And that takes tons of hours. Or the legal tools, which we had a client that did support for researching all of the documents to prove a case, and it would save thousands of legal hours in wading through all the corporate documents and archives trying to work on a legal case.
Wow.
So those are great applications. And then Atomic Revenue, we just are deploying a tool actually this month that is SOC 2 compliant and FINRA and SEC compliant, but it allows us to dump all the data into it that we used to analyze by hand, which would take us.
Give me an example. What would that data be and sort of what's the desired outcomes with it?
Yeah.
Just trying to put that into a way that could apply to a B2B or B2C service.
So we dump in financials, planning documents. If you're an EOS company, we put in the VTO, we put in your scorecard. So we put in all of your regular reports. We put in the information from the CRM. We're looking at conversion rate analysis, lead volumes, sales volumes, pricing information. And then we dump in dozens of proposals to look at where there's high levels of customization that should be templated. And then coming out of the tool, we provide an 18-month or 24-month, depending on how much work there is to do, quarter by quarter plan of how to solve some of the challenges that we have discovered. Some of those are in people compensation, some are in process, a lot are in ways to improve conversion rates. So I do have to say though, I really shouldn't say it. I have to tell you though, Matt, I know we're on camera. AI turned out to be smarter than me. And I'm admitting it, and I'm not sad about it. I'm not sad, but
I have to agree. I'm ditto as well. It also remembers things a hell of a lot better than I ever could.
It does. So I found, with a client, I found a conversion point that if you increase leads by 30%, which is expensive and a lot of work, you'd only have 0.25 additional construction projects in 18 months when they get ready to be built. And I found a conversion point in there that was, if you move this conversion point by 2%, it's worth 10 million to your top line without changing the amount of leads you have.
So talk me through that, just because I'm curious how, because the way I was reading it is you could spend 30% more and only get 0.25% of an increase. So I guess if the number's big enough that quarter of a basis point is going to pay for itself, right? I mean, talk me through that.
Yeah. So there is not an ROI on less than a whole project.
Right.
So
because otherwise you don't get a
what
project.
that says is you would have to increase leads by 120% in order to get one new construction project.
Yeah. I was talking about something similar with someone about ad spend for services. It's like at some point, the spend and conversion are running together, then they touch. And then at the other point, it's like you spend more and you get the same. It's like, well, wait, we should just spend less and get the same instead of spending more and get the same.
Yep. But if you go through the whole process, you see that there's, over the 18 months, 7 or 8 different conversion points where a portion of the projects don't advance. And then looking at that, we got to one point in the process where a very small, less than 10% of the projects advanced. And by moving that one number by 2%, it was worth 10 million. So then we started looking at what's the process.
Hold on, I'm unpack it for a second, because there's something you saw that allowed you to make a change during a stage of conversation or stage of sales cycle that increased conversion.
It was a sales cycle stage that we identified as where the leadership team should spend their energy. This is your most valuable thing to focus your leadership team energy and money on, is figuring out how to improve the percent of deals that move from stage D to stage E.
Right. Because that's the bottleneck, or that's the point in which the deal goes south.
Right. And that
in this scenario, what was that
point.
particular, I'm curious, like what was that point of change?
So this is interesting because it is true in more than a handful of clients I've worked with. It is when the sales team does a handoff to the technical team for pricing and building out a project, and then the sales team goes hands off.
Okay.
And they feel like they've handed it off to the next stage of the process, but the customer hasn't actually made the purchase yet. And a lot of organizations have in their process a premature handoff from sales so that sales can focus more on the front end. So the change there, and the change with a lot of the companies, is more effective use of your technical teams who can price and build proposals, better templating, and then a better qualifications process, of course, by your sales team with the leads that they have, and sticking with the process until the final contract is signed. Customers don't like the handoff.
No.
They want the person that they know and trust. So if anybody gets one thing from this conversation, that has been true at over 80% of the companies that I know who have conversion rate issues. It happens at a handoff.
Absolutely. One person said it's perfectly clear. The other one said it's not clear at all. No, you're right. I get obsessed over handoffs as well. And people, there's, 5 or 6 different chances for people to screw things up inadvertently or unintentionally, but it actually happens. And that was an issue on one of the clients that you and I worked with together is, referral-based businesses. I love them. I have one of them. So do you. It's challenging to scale a referral-based business, especially when you are the service provider that's provided a great service. No one likes to be handed off to someone that's great, not are good, not great. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle in my business and all the businesses I've seen, is going from building a referral business to scaling it up means you've got to get out of the way and not do lead generation and not do business development And that handoff is tricky because, you know, I do think, people say, oh, if you I am exceptional at things, and I think you are as well. How do you, if I'm really good at business development, how do I hand that off to somebody else if that's my really good given strength? And I don't know. It goes back to that handing it off to someone else, expecting, hoping, praying that they're going to do as good of a job as you've done.
Well, I think it's really hard with technical businesses too, because you do have to have a large amount of technical knowledge to be able to do proposals and pricing. And your customers are not going to buy a technical solution from a non-technical sales rep.
That's right.
It's really, to me, about phasing the role so that you become a smaller and smaller part of the sales process, but you're still there at key and critical points in the customer experience, and the customer knows you're always there for them, even though you're not the point person. It's difficult though, because a lot of us who are in the position you're talking about are the founder owners, and we do have a hard time getting out of our own way and letting other people.
But are we genuinely better at it than others?
I don't think we actually are, but we have
No.
better tools. We have all
Right.
the historical knowledge, all the case
Right.
studies, all the relationships. Yeah, that's difficult for a new person to build up, and we get impatient.
Right.
A lot of us are quick starts, right?
Yeah, a lot of us. Oh, guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty.
Me too.
Well, let's go back. I have a couple more questions I want to ask you around AI, and AI specifically around how your teams are implementing it, because I want to talk to the unsophisticated service business person for a moment. I don't say that to be disrespectful. I just think of service-based businesses that are manual in a lot of the things that they do. Do you see, and we can talk specifically about lead generation, because it's, every B2B or B2B service business or B2C service business struggles with generating new customers. Are there any suggestions you have for a business owner that's looking to take that first bite into some AI automations, programs, agents, whatever you want to use, to where do you start? Where do you first start on trying to increase pipeline, as an example, if you're a small B2B services business?
I'd start by looking at the tools you already have. And the likelihood is, if you're not doing it now, no one on your team knows how to do it or how to find the opportunities. So it's a great
Right.
time to call someone in who can just help you identify the underutilized leads that you already have access to. You just don't know how to find them, and you don't know how to reach out to them in a timely manner. And so that's the low-hanging fruit. A lot of CRMs now, they have ways that they can tell you who's been to your website or who opened the email, or who do you know that is, potentially interested in this conversation based on LinkedIn and Zoom info or whatever other
Right.
sources are available. And even if you just had access to how many people are already in your universe looking for you, wanting to talk to you, and you contacted them,
Right.
you would have more leads.
Sure.
So that's a really low-hanging fruit opportunity, and there's easy ways to use AI and automation that someone can set up that just tell you when to call someone or when to email, or they email on your behalf. So those are easy. If you don't have a CRM, and I have worked with a lot of,
Oh, I know you have.
small,
What's your go-to?
non-technical companies, who don't have a way of even keeping track of who their customers or buyers are in a way that lets you communicate with them regularly. You don't have any data for AI to read or for automation. So you have to kind of get that infrastructure in place first, where you get the contacts out of your phone and get them out of your Microsoft Outlook phone book and put them into a system that can work on your behalf. Otherwise, you're going to have to continue working harder because it's all manual. So I think that's one of the things that has changed in the last 10 years is people used to be able to grow their businesses without adopting what we would consider basic business tools and just succeed on the way we've always done business. But in the
Right.
last 5 years, it's really changed and you cannot. And your customers are expecting more from you.
Right.
They're transitioning too. You have younger buyers who
Expectations have changed drastically on response times and details and delivery and proposal turns and all that stuff. There's a certain level of expectations out there for sure.
yeah. I do
For
not
sure.
suggest though that you, and I've seen this, that you have everybody get a Copilot license or a Chat GPT license and say, let's meet every week and see what you've learned to do with it. Because all you have then is a bunch of people playing with AI tools without any security
Yeah.
or training, and they're not
Right.
doing their other jobs. So you're detracting from business productivity while you think
You're
you're
actually increasing.
figuring out
Instead,
how
it's a
to.
shiny object distraction and people are going crazy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. This part of the podcast, I like to throw it over to the interviewee, not the interviewer, and ask if there's anything I could chat with you about, or what if scenarios that you created that may be helpful for us to create a little more dialogue. So I'll throw it to you. Wonder if you have any questions to ask me about business or growing companies or managing people or whatever.
well, I've had the pleasure of working with you before, Matt, and I do have a very real scenario that I would love to hear your take on it, not only as a fractional integrator, but as a fractional COO. I think it comes up often, and it's very difficult to unwind unless you're in the COO integrator seat. So not everyone has a good COO or integrator, and some people don't have one at all. So I'd like to ask you what you would do. I have run into this repeatedly, but recently have been having a lot of conversations about a client that has a vision for how their business is going to operate and how the people within their organization are going to grow the business. And it's a great vision, and everyone's on board and wants to proceed in that direction. It's very collaborative. It is, you sell and refer business to the other people within the organization, and everybody wins together and kumbaya, right?
Yes,
And
all the happy feelings.
everybody thinks that that's a great vision and they're on board.
Right.
But when it comes to KPIs and performance measures, KPIs are based on what you sell and do for yourself. And you don't have any control over the corporate costs that might be allocated to you or any control over how those costs are used to serve you. And your only recognition is how well your business unit does, which actually deters the cross-selling and referral.
Interesting. Yeah, why would I
mission.
send it out to someone else if I can keep it myself?
Yes. And
Yeah.
so it's very hard for me to set up a CRM system that cares for the needs of the users when there is this conflict. And that's at the very tactical day-to-day level. But I'm curious what you would do and if you've ever run into that before in your roles.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that specific scenario, yeah, actually, I'm dealing. It's kind of a different scenario, but I'll give you a quick scenario that we're struggling with one of my clients. They're a retail sales company, literally have a brick and mortar sales front, and they sell jewelry, and very successful. Sales team sells, repair team repairs, until the repair team starts to sell. Then it becomes, well, that's my revenue. It's like, well, wait, we're trying to grow it. Well, who gets it? Who wants it? And there's just this division of understanding who's responsible for what. And again, in theory, everyone wants to grow, rising tides lift all boats. If that theory works, great, until one person's compensated differently and you take a sale from me. So to go back to your question, it's misalignment of expectations. And in theory, I always tell folks, like, don't take a number, don't accept a target that you're not comfortable with, because you're going to be held to it. And I think that sometimes people don't have the choice. But I always say you've got to be bought into your sales revenue numbers. And if you're not believing that you can achieve them genuinely, you might not be in the right seat. The number might be right and you're just sandbagging, or 7 other reasons as to why. But I think that comes back to mismanagement of expectations, or just a poor structure that says we're not set up to do it this way. We're saying we want an outcome, but our systems aren't allowing us to do that. And repeatedly, we're looking over a negative KPI or a negative scorecard that's saying we're doing well, but we're not. So I may argue and push back to say that everyone's not been bought in on the vision, because,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you were, it would be pretty clear that these issues aren't really apparent. So give me a little more backstory on this to help me understand sort of the nuance around the circumstance here.
So the company has an executive team that is a visionary and a CFO, but not really an operational leadership team. The leadership team is each of the practice area leaders that's responsible for their number in their practice area.
Got it.
So even from a leadership team perspective, it's hard to be unbiased when, if I don't spend my time growing my practice area and I spend my time growing your practice area, eventually I'm going to run out of time and not hit my number.
Right.
And I think it's true with sales reps in general. It's why a lot of reseller models don't work, right?
Right.
You think it's exciting because that company has 300 of your potential clients, but they don't know how to sell your service and your area. And so it's beyond not knowing how to sell, but I think that the KPIs are really challenging because that's where it comes into at the end of the year. How am I going to be measured? I'd love to grow the entire organization. I'd love to help my friend out in the neighboring practice area. So I'm bought into that part of the vision, but there's no benefit.
Is there a scenario where you can, really look at how we're measuring success and how people are monitored and compensated? Because it sounds like it's cannibalistic at times. It's like, we really want you to do these things, but not really, because it takes away from this thing. It's like, it's a misalignment of tracking and compensation, I think. But reality is, like, if this is a leadership team issue, empowering those leaders to continue to surface the issue as it comes up, because it's very easy to work for a visionary founder or in a corporate world where they just tell you that's the way it is. I'm sorry. And that's kind of a answer, because you're not going to last at that firm or that organization if the answer is that's the way it is. Rather, keep throwing those issues to the board for conversation, because eventually people are going to get sick of hearing the same issue colored or shaded a different way. But the reality is you can only say the same thing so many times before you're just fed up with it. But throw it up there, bring the conversation out, and continue to move forward on it. So that's the way I would approach it. It's probably a simplistic view, but leadership teams are built to solve problems like that.
Yeah. And I do think that this is one of the areas where an integrator or a COO is really, really valuable, to be able to work with each of the different leaders and really bring together a collective, cohesive recommendation from everybody to the visionary.
Right. Yeah, that's our job. We get to be the ping pong ball that bounces from department to department, gathering information and bringing information back to the leadership team or back to the visionary CEO that says, hey, I know you think you're hearing something, but the reality is you're not listening, because we've said it 3 different ways. And here I am doing my best to politely surface this thing to you in a way that's not confrontational or hopefully not disrespectful, but you're not listening. You're not hearing us. We're saying we need to make a change to this model. And the reality is that you're just telling us to go to the other room and do something else. Don't focus on that problem. And that's disheartening and not motivating. So I think, that's one of the things a fractional integrator we get to do is have those sticky conversations and come to leadership teams and say, I don't think we're looking at it this way. We're really not. And I will tell my clients often, like, hey, you brought us in to help you make hard decisions. Please listen to us, because I'm just another person saying the same thing that your entire team's been saying to you. I'm just hoping you're going to hear me because I'm the outsider. But the reality is they've all been saying this to you. So why don't you take some of our advice? And more importantly, here's a solution. Because I think a lot of times people just get to the point where they're like, it's easier to deal with the dysfunction than to come up with the change. And that's a beauty that when you bring a fractional in, is that we also get to surface the problem, but come up with a solution as well.
Yeah. And bring a very objective perspective in. And those visionaries, they're so charming and compelling that when you're in a conversation with them, it makes perfect sense why it is the way that it is. And you're like, yes, I'm going to follow you off the cliff.
That's a great idea. I'm going down going down in flames with you. Well, Tara, I want to pause and give a shout out to my time working with you and your team at Atomic Revenue. We ended up getting referred into you years ago with one of our clients who didn't really have a revenue model. I mean, it was a construction-based business, founder-led, founder drove the leads, founder handled all the relationships. And there was an obvious need that we needed to get outside of the founder-driven sales scenario. And we were able to bring in Atomic Revenue, you and your team, to help us do a lot of different things. And it was great because your team served as our fractional revenue department. We hadn't built one before. We didn't want to go backwards and try to figure out all of the things. We really wanted to focus first, build the structure, find the roles, build the lead gen system, build the CRM system. All that stuff didn't exist. And it was great to come in and work with you and your team because I had a turnkey solution. And I could have figured out some of it. I wouldn't have been a subject matter expert, but I could have figured out some of it. But the time in which it would have taken me to figure that out, and the brain damage and the lack of trust that you lose by taking so long, it was nice to come in and do a turnkey with you guys. And I do know for a fact that, Tara, this is probably 3 years ago or more, that a lot of the systems that your team built are still in place with that company today. So shout out to you and the Atomic Revenue team for delivering good service to a service-based business that we were working with.
We love to hear that. It's a lot of hard work when we're in it together, and it's great to work with good clients, and they're great other fractional leaders or in-house leaders to get big projects done. And we're always glad to hear when they continue to use them long after we've handed over the reins.
Yeah. And this one more quick thing that I think a lot of people don't take or probably take for granted is the system creation around a CRM and your team's outside experience to operating a CRM and setting things up structurally, building a flow, identifying lead cycles, figuring out what triggers dictate going from what lead to the other. Like, there are things out there that an outsider's perspective, particularly around setting up a new revenue generating technology tool, email sequences and these and things and all this stuff that, like, if you're not a subject matter expert, you just don't know about. And it was great to have you guys set all those systems up because you know what? I didn't have to think about it. I'm the fractional COO. I don't want to be thinking about revenue generation down to the weed level. That's what we should have a revenue team to do. So that was really special to have and trust you guys to go run it and check in and have deliverables and keep it going. So
that's our favorite type of work, especially when we get to participate with the leadership team and be equally grateful that we didn't have to do any of the things that you were accountable for.
Touche. Well, I think I have plenty of stuff on my end. Would you give me one little blip about what it was like working with a fractional COO and sort of how or fractional integrator, how it was impactful for you to get your work done?
Yes. Well, I'm no stranger to fractional integrators, and Matt, when we first met and you were the fractional integrator on a client team, it was nice to go in and work with someone who was accountable and collaborative and taking on all of these hard projects that, let's face it, visionaries are not great at. And a lot of different departments are involved in, and they're complex. And without someone in place to be the COO or the integrator, really difficult for anyone on the team to succeed. Those are all critical functions of the business that allow us to do our jobs. And without that person in place, we wouldn't be able to. And I myself, at my own company, am on my 4th fractional integrator. However, I have the
Nice.
same one that I had when I met you. And
That's
so I
great.
think it takes a little while to find the right fit between a visionary and an integrator. And it's difficult as a visionary to hand over, control. But it's
Sure.
so great to work with an integrator like you, Matt, who can take the control. We trust you with it. We don't need to be involved because we know it's in good hands. And as a visionary, that's really, really what we need in order to grow our business, is to know that the person who's in that fractional integrator seat or fractional COO is able to take what we don't want to do and handle it. And we don't have to
That's,
worry.
yeah, so well said. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, you've got to have reps to have wisdom, and you've got to have experience in seeing things. And I think that's one of the beauties of hiring a fractional, is that you should be hiring someone who has a little bit of gray hair and who's seen some of the nonsense that happens and has that ability to communicate directly with the visionary in a kind of no bullshit way. It's like, hey, I've seen this. We've done this. I need to speak to you in a candid but respectful way. I'm asking you to hear me in that way too. So I love that you say that, because being direct and also giving trust is hard, and earning trust is hard, but you got to kind of lean in. And we as fractionals have to continue to deliver. We lose immediate credibility when we don't do what we say we're going to do. We don't roll up the information the way that we are. So it puts us in a spot where we're, forcing ourselves to be accountable, because we don't want to be hypocritical for not holding others accountable. So Tara, thank you so much for your time today. It's been awesome to chat with you, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
That sounds great, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of this show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.